Right, we're on day 4, 72 to 96 hours. By now, you're probably quite deep in the thick of it. You're sleep deprived. Breasts are still feeling quite full. You still haven't quite worked out what baby needs, and baby's probably still feeding quite voraciously. And at this time, it really is very much about go with the flow. If you didn't have yesterday, what I spoke about yesterday, then you're probably going to have it today. Because remember, the way that your baby's born influences the way that they respond. If you had an elective cesarean, sometimes your milk only comes in on day 4. So give yourself that time. And whatever happened yesterday that I spoke about in the video for day 3 might be happening for you today. For day 4, if you had it yesterday, it's probably going to be much the same, but you're a little bit more sleep deprived, and it's you're starting to feel a little bit desperate. So for me today, this video is just reminding you that all is okay. Go back to the basics of supply and demand. The more your baby's demanding, the more your body will supply, and your body really is normalizing and working out exactly how much your baby needs and what the milk needs to be made of to meet your baby's needs, because every mom's breast milk is different. A little reminder about cluster feeding. If you haven't experienced cluster feeding yet, you may experience it in the next 24 hours, and it will carry on for the next 2 weeks at least. Remember that cluster feeding very often happens in the early hours of the morning, after midnight when you're absolutely exhausted, or in the late afternoon. If your partner's already gone back to work, it's kind of when they get back from work, everything's a little bit chaotic in the household. Go with it, because the cluster feeding is one of the ways that your body uses to establish and get the milk supply going. So it's all about supply and demand. It's all hormonally related, and as exhausting as what it is, it will end. Remember also that if your baby cluster feeds for 3 hours, you can expect that when they eventually do go to sleep, they will have a good 3-hour sleep after that. It'll be a deep sleep, because they will eventually get to that milk coma stage. And round about now is when you might be expecting to see milk coma. What I mean by that is literally, because your milk is now in and they're getting a really good milk feed, they will feed till they're satiated, and their little eyes roll back in their head. If they're lying in your arms, their arms are all floppy and like head goes to the side. So they're just like really soft and floppy. And it's a beautiful sign that they've had a really good feed to get that milk coma thing, and use that as a way to reassure yourself and go back to that sense of trust and confidence in your ability to feed your baby and of your breast milk and of this whole process. Put your baby down, maybe get your partner to watch them so that you can then go and get a good 3-hour sleep. If they're cluster fed for 4 hours, it would be okay for them to sleep for 4 hours. So also be mindful then that, you've done a lot of feeding almost constantly on off for 4 hours. So if they sleep for 4, it would be absolutely fine. And don't set your alarm to then wake them up at 3. Let them sleep for 4. They will wake up, and then they'll probably have quite a good feed, and you'll feel that your breasts are really full as well, because you've had a lot of good demanding for 4 hours plus a good sleep. So be mindful, if they cluster feed for 3 or 4 hours, they can sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and then make sure that your partner's on hand to watch them so you feel comfortable to go and sleep for that period of time and catch up, because at this stage you really, really do need it. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help sometimes make you think as if you're not coping. It's not about not coping. You are coping. About coping, you're going to cope a whole lot better if you're able to ask for help, and getting help from the right people, the people who are really going to support and encourage you and guide you to that place of deep trust and confidence in you, yourself, your body, and your baby, and your breastfeeding journey. How much is enough? At this stage, because your milk is in, it's going to be a lot easier to gauge how much is coming out, and let that be your guide and reassurance for how much is going in. Remember, in an earlier video, I spoke about how day 1, we expect 1 to 2 wees and meconium. I went through everything. So bearing in mind that we're now at day 4, your milk is definitely coming in. I would expect at least 4 or more wee, and I would expect that your breast the poo would be changing to breast milk poo. Breast milk poo is yellow, it's watery, it's grainy, it looks like it's got little seeds in. Sometimes it looks like it's got cottage cheese curds. I know those are all like really gross descriptions, but it's kind of the best way of me describing it so that you know that it's normal. The fact that it's watery does not mean that it is diarrhea. It is meant to be that way. And at this stage, you'll see that it starts coming out pretty much as it's going in, and all of that would be okay. I would expect 4 to 6 wee and or poo in 24 hours. And at this stage, I would be expecting that your baby is feeding at least 8 times in 24 hours, but more than likely it would be 10 to 12, and that would be okay. Excuse me. When you're doing a cluster feed, depending on how long the cluster feed goes on and how much baby does feed in those 3 hours, I would take that as 2 or 3 feeds. Okay, so it wouldn't be 1 feed because it's a cluster. So if you're counting the feeds in 24 hours and you have a cluster, then classify a cluster as 2 or 3, depending on how long it goes on for. And once again, watch for those signs of milk coma and then go to sleep. Then I want to chat a little bit about breastfeeding supplements. So if your milk supply is not as good as what you think it might be, and your breasts aren't as engorged as what you're expecting, you might be thinking you don't have enough. But go back to the signs that will reassure you that your baby's getting, your breast might not be that engorged, but you're still getting that amount of output and you're starting to get the milk coma. So the milk is there. But even so, I find that lots of moms want to take breastfeeding supplements and lactation cookies and fenugreek tablets and breastfeeding lactation teas and all of that. They're all fine, but none of them work if you're not allowing the baby to suck at the breast, because the establishing a good supply is all about demand. So it means that you need to be allowing the baby to suckle at the breast at least every 3 hours, and those cluster feeds are an important part of that. So supplements are great, but if you're eating a healthy diet that includes 3 meals a day, 3 snacks, protein at every meal, and those snacks are all really, really healthy, you're probably including all the things that you need anyway that will encourage your milk supply to come in. Your milk supply requires a healthy diet that is balanced. And we all know what a balanced diet is, so I'm not going to go into that, although I know that in my course, the breastfeeding course, I do include some really good healthy recipes, and I go through different things. So if you've got the course, go into breastfeeding and check out the diet things. I've also got a lot of stuff on my blog for that. And that's it for this video. They're getting shorter and shorter because we are starting to understand the cues now and what to expect. But in the next video, I'm going to be talking about day 5. So I'll see you there.